Welcome to the Big Biz Show.
Taking care of business.
You want fast-talking, hard-hitting discussions on business and finance? Maybe with a barroom slant and some really salty peanuts? We're not counting calories. We're counting cash. Before we get to the man with the financial plan, meet the money team. Costa, Mary, and Greg. Now Captain Finance himself, Sully.
Hey there, live from the Loft 100 studios in sunny San Diego, California. Yet another Big Biz Show is on the air. Great to have you along. Mary Burt Godwin, my co-host, as well as Greg Todoroff, our executive producer. I'm Sully, and the Day Trader trio over there. Good to see you, boys. They know those 8 notes. That's it.
They're the best in the biz, though, I'll tell you.
But they nail it, I will tell you.
Nail it every time.
Howie Font is here to talk about all things business, but specifically today, there is this thing called meme coin and meme coin mania. Howie, what's a meme coin?
What is it?
And what does it mean? Is this like Bitcoin? Is this like Dogecoin? Is this like that monkey coin that came out last year?
It's much closer to Dogecoin. So, it doesn't take much. It's just a little bit of code that's very well known, and you can launch your own crypto token. Usually you have to associate that with some sort of value or, prize or something like that. But in the days before the inauguration, there was an official Trump meme coin, and then very shortly after that, a Melania meme coin that came up, and the Trump coin reached a peak valuation. All of them at that price was $15 billion.
Who creates these things?
Does it have his picture on there, or what the heck is it? I don't understand.
Well, like the new Trump sneak is talking about.
Is it Melania and her hat from the inauguration? What is it?
The Bolero.
Oh,
yeah.
I actually like that. I was going to
before that.
Who's that number with that Bolero hat? I realized it was the first lady.
Calm down.
Relax. Can you tell me who made this thing, and do they make money from this?
So this was created by an LLC that was opened earlier in the month, that is owned by the Trump organization. I think Eric Trump is the one that's spearheading this whole thing, and I'm sure that the company that they use to make this meme coin and them themselves have a large interest in it. But much was purchased by the retail market.
And where do they purchase this? Is this on Coinbase? Is this purchased at Bank of America? Can you go to the ATM?
Yeah. So once it was launched, it was scarce, and then these become really, really available as they get adopted by the exchanges. For instance, the Trump coin had a kind of a second life after an initial dip, after Robinhood announced that they had the Trump coin on it, and so that gives you access to different sets of retail investors. But no, I mean, we're doing this, I think, as a warning to all watching.
Howie, are these things traded like? Are these traded like stocks are traded or bonds are traded? Is that when you say traders? Is that they invest in it and the next day they want to buy low, sell high type thing?
These guys definitely want to sell high. I mean, I don't think there's any rationale for a long-term holding of the Trump coin or the Melania coin.
Now, are these
what happens here is
what?
What happens here is people see who is sponsoring it. They see how much notoriety that person has. They're putting large amounts of money in, betting that a bunch of other people are also going to try. And it's kind of this hot potato game, like how high can we get this thing to go? How much can we keep buying before someone finally says, I've had enough and I'm pulling.
Does the success or failure of the thing it represents have anything to do? Because I hear there's this band called Sullivan that might be very popular. Yeah. There might be a Sullivan coin that comes out if you invest early. So did I just make securities fraud there?
Here's the thing. You didn't.
Okay.
There's nothing
you can invest in.
Yeah. And the new SEC chair has a very different opinion than the old one did. So no, you wouldn't have done anything wrong. And all I think you need to do for a Sullivan coin is launch it and no problem.
Howie and Mary, I want you on something to it. Give people let's go. Can we have a physical one too? Like just so you know.
For your put in your pocket.
Thanks, Howie. Appreciate it. Live from the Loft 100 studios in sunny San Diego, California, Big Biz Show is on the air. Great to have you along nationwide, coast to coast, television and internationally, TV and radio. I'm Sully. That's Mary Burt Godwin, Greg Todoroff, Mike Costa out until next week. And, of course, the Day Trader Quattro, no longer, now the Day Trader Trio. Good to see you guys.
In the biz.
I want to talk about AI. AI is something that is as
Terrifying?
certain as the automation of making automobiles back in the 1920s. Okay, whereby the biggest fear back then was people losing their jobs and never replacing. And it turns out it worked out great. AI holds immense promise in terms of what it can do with certain companies. This next company, and we got this referred to us by, I think, a viewer who contacted Greg, our executive producer, and said, you got to get this company called Poet Technologies on the air. And because Greg is such a big shot, and he appears on a national television program every day.
Very important.
He got the chairman and CEO of Poet Technologies. Their stock symbol is P-O-E-T, P-O-E-T, just like the word poet. And Poet powers AI. Suresh Venkatesan is our guest today, and he joins us via Zoom. Dr. Venkatesan, may I call you Suresh? Great to see you today, and thanks for coming in. Can you talk to us just top down for the Johnny Lunch Buckets of the world that don't understand AI, how this is going to change our world?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, terrific to be here on the show with you. So I think it's great to have the opportunity to talk about what we do at Poet.
Well, thanks. Thanks for coming in.
Listen, AI is, it's ubiquitous, right? And one of the things that we see with AI particularly, is it kind of breaks down into two categories. One is called training and the other is inferencing. But really, the big growth right now is in training. And people have these large language models that they're sitting and training these machines, right? So that when you type something into ChatGPT, it understands what you're asking and then can query that against an immense database and provide you with, reasonable responses. And these large language models use billions, hundreds of billions of parameters, right, that you have to be training them. So that is a lot of data. So what we're finding is that as companies do more and more with AI, they're obviously consuming and moving large amounts of data across their AI clusters. And that's where, fundamentally Poet comes in. And what happens is when you have to move a large amount of data, the most efficient way of moving that data is to use light as the medium of communications. Think about it like in your home. You have a Wi-Fi network, and
Sure.
Wi-Fi is using microwave or RF, right?
Right,
So and
right.
you have this little box in your closet or whatever. It's taking electrical signals and converting it into RF, and that's transmitted in your house, and data is transmitted that way. Similarly, in large data centers, electrical signals are converted into light. And then the light is transmitted, obviously at the speed of light, right? And it connects all of these servers that are in these AI data centers. So it's kind of a problem that, kind of cascades. First, there's a need for immense amounts of data, therefore a need for transporting that data using light, and therefore, technologies that can efficiently produce these quote unquote Wi-Fi transmitters, right? What we call transceivers in our field, efficiently, and in a low cost manner. And so that's what Poet does. So we have a manufacturing solution that can produce these transceivers, at immense scale and using very low cost semiconductor technologies. That then, obviously power the AI networks.
And you're speaking about power.
Underlying it.
You're speaking about power. I'm assuming you're saving energy with
Absolutely.
with it, right?
Absolutely. It's so typically like back in the day, data was transmitted using electricity. And when you're transmitting with electricity, you consume a lot of power. But when you're transmitting using light, there's not much friction, right? So there's not much heat generated. and you can dramatically lower the power consumption in these AI systems. So there is a push and a need for obviously reducing the amount of power that these data centers utilize, and one of the ways to do that is to convert more and more of the electrical links into optical links or light links that consume much less power. That means more demand for these solutions that use light, which means better manufacturing techniques that are needed to make them in high volume and low cost, which means using POET's technology, right?
So, Dr. Suresh, who and what industries make up your client base?
We are primarily serving, large-scale data centers that are putting together AI servers, right? So these are hyperscalers like eventually the Googles, the AWSs, the Metas of the world, that are consuming these optical transmitters like they're M&Ms, right? And so, we are coming up with technologies that allow us to manufacture these transceivers or transmitters at an extremely low cost. So our industry it is esoteric. It is in data communications, which is, providing optical data communication links. That's our industry.
But it's also infrastructure. You're creating an infrastructure where none was before.
Absolutely, it's hardware infrastructure.
If you're the backbone, you're in the right place at the right time, I would suggest. Correct?
Yeah, we've been developing this technology since about 2018, and back then people were like, oh yeah, we don't really need something like this. And they were probably true, because the scale and the volume of optical data communications wasn't nearly what it is today. Today, AI is going to happen. AI is going to drive the need for new solutions. And solutions like the ones POET has developed and provided are now becoming more and more mandatory, in terms of being able to build these really, really high speed systems.
One of the things that's interesting here is that best practices in your business wasn't even known, let's say back in 2016, right? Mm-hmm. So you had this sort of, I'm going to say clumsy sort of way of integrating everything from lasers to waveguides and so on and so forth. And what you've done is created a more elegant sort of best practices for the industry, which in turn could end up being the backbone of the entire industry if things go correct. Am I assuming that could be part of the arc of the story?
Yeah, that's correct. If you look at the arc of development in photonics, which it's very, very different from electronics. So electronics are, of course, manufacturing processes that make microprocessors, right, or graphics chips or what have you, and they're built on large semiconductor wafers. They're built hundreds of chips at a time, thousands of chips at a time, using kind of advanced semiconductor manufacturing techniques. Photonics or optics, it's akin to building one chip at a time, using a manufacturing process. And so it doesn't really have the economy of scale in terms of either cost or just sheer volumes they're trying to put out. And so what we've done at POET is to try to apply the tried and tested methods of manufacturing semiconductors and applying it to the world of photonics. And in so doing, creating a manufacturing infrastructure that is able to scale with the demands of AI.
I think what excites me most about this is that AI is going to change everything, but we don't know what we don't know. I think you know what we should know. So what are you most excited about going into 2025 and beyond, not only for AI, but for your company?
Yeah, I think, AI, I think going forward into 2025 and 2026, I believe AI is, the killer app for AI is, people are still trying to figure out what that is, right? So there is, of course, a lot of hype around AI, with ChatGPT, large language models, but there are going to be these killer apps where, for example, efficient code writing and just generally increasing the efficiency of people, productivity, right? Like you brought about automobiles right at the beginning. It's kind of interesting when you look at automobiles at the very beginning when auto came up. Ford created a manufacturing assembly line, that didn't exist before. And so he did that because he saw a need for a large number of automobiles, and he felt that, the manufacturing process to make these automobiles had better change. Otherwise, there was no way he was going to be able to manufacture those number of cars. That's what we've done in the world of photonics for AI. So I feel, a couple of things. AI is just going to grow and proliferate, and there are going to be some interesting killer apps that we can't even conceive of today, right? And that's typically what happens with technology. That makes it ubiquitous. And when that happens, there's going to be a big growth, and we're there to, provide solutions to support that growth, right? We're providing products using semiconductor technologies, utilizing what we call our proprietary optical interposer platform to create these solutions for the AI space that can meet the requirements for cost, size, scale in terms of volume, energy efficiency, and all of the things that matter.
You're an enterprise-wide solution. His name is Dr. Suresh Venkatesan. Dr. Venkatesan, will you join us again? We could have you for a whole hour here and talk to you. I think it's fantastic. I hope you come back with us. His stock symbol, POET. POET, of course, Poet Technologies. We'll hear more from him, I can guarantee you that. Big Biz Show continues, bigbizshow.com.
We are in the Loft 100 studios in Southern California. Must mean one thing and one thing only. That's right, it's the Big Biz Show. Whoever you're watching, whoever you listen, as always, thanks for being with us here. Sitting here at the bar, I'm Costa. That is Marybird Godwin, a.k.a. Miss Heavy Metal 2025.
Leather to you.
Are you? Leather.
Tech producer Greg Todorov, and of course, Sully.
If my middle name was Leather, would that be creepy?
If what?
Hi, I'm the CEO of Chase, JP Morgan Chase. My name is Robert Leather Sullivan. Would that be?
Yeah, people
What would be the worst middle name you could have as a CEO of a public company?
Swindler.
Risk?
Risk. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like it's a Dutch name.
It's actually Thief. Excuse me.
Mary, are you I find out more and more. Mary's been working together with me for what, 7 years, 6 years? Seems like 10 minutes.
6 years.
Underwater. Yep. Can I ask you?
For me.
Well, that's all you got? Whoa. That's all you got? That's it?
Whoa.
So did you.
Yeah. You are.
Exactly right.
I find out that, Mary has been involved. Tomorrow I'd like to talk about on the other show about how you were part of
yes, Jeff and Jer show.
And then, but I also want to talk about all of the game shows you've been involved in.
I've been on several game shows. Yeah.
So, what makes one say to themselves, "Ba-da-ba, da-da-ba," and then come on down? I mean, I remember Rusty Nails. I hearken back again one more time to. Let me bring it to a gentler time. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's actually appropriate music for you.
Anyway, Russ went on America's Funniest Home Videos one time.
He did.
And he sat, he was just in the audience. Oh. So he's got his wife here, little Tyler here, little Bree here, and Allie. And, and here's the camera here. So let's pretend the camera's right in front of you. Give me this camera, right here. This camera's here, okay? Yeah. So he's like here, right? And the kids are here. Russ the whole time's like. Now, I said to him, what were you hoping to accomplish? Yeah. I've been in those situations. As a bachelor, I've said things out loud like I want to meet that girl. So I'm going to say, that is a giant purse with no plan at all. Like, what happens next? Right? I want to know. Like, I see us when we get in these situations. Like, what was the plan? Was your plan to get discovered? Or
no, my plan was to make money.
No kidding.
I wanted to make money. I was a new mom, and I didn't want to go back to the job I was at.
Didn't
I
you
wanted
get a free ticket somewhere? Haven't you gotten free tickets in Doha, or has it all been a big zero?
No, I won $100,000 singing karaoke.
Hey, John Vandermosten is a senior life science analyst. He's been on the air with us before. He works with Zacks, small cap research, and Unboxing Biotech, I believe is his newsletter. You can go to unboxingbiotech.com. And he joins us once again to talk about healthcare, to talk about all things in terms of small cap research in that space. John, thanks for sitting through our game show exploration here as we had to go through this stuff.
I want to play too. Can I be with the band also?
Yeah, yes. You can. You look like the lead singer of Judas Priest anyway, so I think you could go, Rob. Let's go. Hey, let's talk about what's happening in life sciences. There's big life sciences conferences going on. You got JP Morgan Chase going on right now. In terms of biotech, talk about what's happening. Give us a lay of the land.
Yeah. So as probably most healthcare investors know, this is the week of JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, which is probably the biggest conference in the United States every year. And it usually starts off with a big bang in terms of M&A, where a lot of companies show what their direction is going forward. And they didn't disappoint this year. There were three in excess of $1 billion acquisitions that occurred, and they started off with a bang yesterday up there in San Francisco. So the biggest one was a $14 billion deal with J&J and Intercellular, and they picked up the company that has Caplyta, which is a drug for schizophrenia. And it's also approved for major depressive disorder, and then it's in development for a few other things as well related to schizophrenia and MDD. So that was the biggest one, and we saw two other in excess of $1 billion deals in the oncology space with it was Eli Lilly and Scorpion and GSK and IDRX, and both those guys picked up an oncology drug and oncology franchise with their buy. So. That's what we saw. That's what we saw on the first day of JP Morgan this year.
So, John, what are all the different elements of this big conference? Because we've been hearing a lot about it. So talk us through what really goes down there.
Yeah, well, it's an opportunity, I think, for companies to talk about what they're doing. And as it starts out in January, at the beginning of the year, it kind of sets out their pathway for this year. It's also a huge opportunity for companies to make deals, to meet up with where smaller companies meet up with representatives from the bigger companies to show them what they got. Because one of the things that's happening right now in biopharma is that there's a huge patent cliff over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And what these big companies need to do is they need to fill in those patent expirations with new products and new innovation. So this conference allows the smaller companies and the bigger companies to all be in the same small space and get in there and talk and make deals that happen in the future. So that's another component of it. And also it's a chance for investors to meet with 100 companies in 3 or 4 days. And there's also some good entertainment too out there. So it's there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a huge event. It's a crazy event. And I usually go, but I'm not up there this year.
John Vandermosten, the Senior Life Sciences Analyst, Zacks Small Cap Research, and Unboxing Biotech, their website, unboxingbiotech.com. John, but $1 billion deal, if that's not someone bumping into somebody in the lobby and say, hey, yeah, I want to buy your company for $1 billion, are we talking that this is probably being discussed a year to 2 years in advance, maybe even more?
Yeah, exactly. These deals take a while to put together. There's legal, regulatory, and obviously financing issues that have to be considered. So yeah, probably a lot of these deals took place, were initiated probably a year ago. Sometimes the bigger companies and the smaller companies take a small initial step where they maybe make an equity investment, or they work together on a trial. And if that works out well, then they take the next step. And then, the final step obviously is for them to buy one another and bring it in-house. So you could see that the deals that got announced over the last day or so as the final step of what happens when these companies come together.
Yeah, what's interesting for me here is if you think in terms of all of the companies that are there and all of the deals that can be done, I would love to see the economic impact that it has on the entire sector, because the sector has been beaten down for the last 2 years, 23 and 24. I beg your pardon, 22 and 23. 24 was supposed to be the year, and it wasn't. Just before I let you out of here, you think this is going to be the year this year?
I think one of the things that's changed is I think there's a lot more optimism about M&A being allowed in under the Trump administration. One of the things that's been a hurdle, though, I think, is the interest rates that had gone up from where they'd been a couple of years ago, and obviously with more expensive capital, it just makes it a little bit harder to do a deal.
Because capital formation has been almost impossible for these guys in the equity arrangements here. Capital was available in Q2 last year, and then it was gone again, and now it's starting to come back. At least I hope it's going to stay back.
Yeah. Me too. So, if we see interest rates kind of stabilize or maybe go down a bit, that could incentivize it. But, I think these large companies, they have a lot of cash. They're generating a lot of cash. The problem they face is the patent cliff. I'm sure everybody's heard of Keytruda on Opdivo. Those are two of the biggest drugs out there for checkpoint inhibitors for cancer. And those guys are going to be both of those are going to have competition in a couple of years. And Merck needs to fill up that pipeline again with new products. So
they're going to be using our buddies over.
They need to do something.
They're going to be using our buddies over at Tempest Therapeutics, because remember, Steve Brady just cut a deal with Merck. Hey, John, can't wait to have you back in a couple weeks. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. John Vandermosten.
He is the senior life science analyst, Zacks Small Cap Research, and Unboxing Biotech. His website, unboxingbiotech.com. Wheeling and dealing, the biotech world. So are we. Keep it right here. It's a Big Biz Show. Roll on after this. Hey, they're live from the Loft 100 studios in sunny San Diego, California. 125 million TV homes strong in the U.S. Let's not forget Bloomberg El Financiero abroad, an American Forces network in 175 countries, and all the shifts at sea. Big Biz Show is on the air. And look who we have in studio. Our real estate expert. By the way, you are now our real estate expert. Without even know.
I'm on.
Jason Berry.
Thank you.
JasonBerryTeam.com, BerryEstates.com. He's based here in San Diego, where we broadcast from, but is able to talk about sort of the trends because, like fashion moves east to west, real estate moves west to east, it seems like, in terms of valuations, at least what I'm reading in the news. Now, I gotta say, and I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but these Pacific Palisades fires, which is such a tragedy and probably a preventable tragedy, not trying to be political about it, but I mean, even here in San Diego, where we have what's called a fire season, and we're right in the middle of it, I'm not even sure local officials have done enough to protect us about something that you're probably not familiar with if you live in a different part of the country. But I gotta believe it's gonna affect real estate prices in terms of, we had a problem with supply demand before.
Correct.
Now you got people that want to relocate to areas, San Francisco, San Diego, Arizona, because they're 4 years away from a home rebuild up there, right? It's a grotesque thing to have to talk about, but it's a real thing, isn't it?
It's terrible, but the reality is you look at what occurred up there, right? You had 6,000 structures burned down. You had over 100,000 people, I think, evacuated out of the area.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about communities being wiped out. So to look at it to kind of, to give something comparable in comparison is really look at, even if you were to think Del Mar, the community, Solana Beach, the community, Ranch Santa Fe.
Which are beach communities here in Southern California, which would be considered high dollar communities, correct?
Yes, just being wiped out. That's what brings home,
a place the size of,
or even La Jolla.
half of Austin, Texas, was just blown off the map in terms of acreage.
I was wondering that.
Okay, if you think in terms of parts of, if half of Manhattan burned down in terms of scale of acreage, that's what you're talking about here.
Right.
And we're talking about the fact that there's a couple of headwinds here. First of all, will insurance companies ever insure these people again? Number two, how do you keep people from getting gouged by the onslaught of new construction that's going to start happening right this second? And then is it easier just to take that insurance money that you had and move out of another area, which is going to affect other areas close by, correct?
There's a lot of things to consider. Absolutely will affect areas close by. But, you look initially, what is the first impact that you find? And that's actually on the rentals, right? You look, life once again is about convenience in terms of they want to try and stay close to where, this tragedy occurred. So they're trying to go to Manhattan, they're trying to go Manhattan Beach, trying to go to Palos Verdes, close areas there nearby. And the rents, what you've seen in those areas, is double, triple, which is unbelievable because demand as well. So they are trying to look at, price gouging too. So they are going to be investigating that. So that's going to be interesting. But to Greg's point, you are seeing it, in terms of a trickle effect. They're coming down too. They're coming down to the coast.
So if you're watching us from another area, if you think in terms of where LA is, and then you have Orange County below that, and then of course San Diego below that. Are you going to see, and above, of course, is overvalued or overpriced, I should say,
Santa Barbara.
Bay Area.
Well, but also another fire hazard up there too.
Exactly.
Right?
So are you going to see those areas concentrically?
So we
have more sales, more rents, or is it all of the above?
So I think it's going to be all of the above. What we're seeing immediately is more rents, absolutely, right now. So we've been inundated with a lot of demand from the Palisades area down here, initially looking for rentals, but also looking for sale too. So it's hitting all aspects of it. And then if you try and forecast beyond that too, the people, these families that are relocating here, and they're enjoying the area, what percentage of that population turns into full-time? Well, it's going to happen, right? So you just look at, once again, you're talking about supply demand, you are going to see the demand rise. That's just a natural progression is what you're going to see. And so that is going to impact values, again, we hope positively down here. But once again, it's a tragedy what you see, but just what is the outcome going to be? It's going to be positive for the luxury communities here in San Diego.
What happens up there in terms of those areas where you have just scorched earth and just a couple homes left? Yeah. Will they rebuild, do you think? Will those areas be able to be rebuilt at some point?
I think you're going to see all of that. You're going to see fast tracks being put through the cities to try and help the building. But it's going to be very interesting to see what does happen, right? Because think about this. A lot of those homes, if you were to think, were purchased or deals occurred back in 2021, the COVID era, when rates were low.
Right.
So those people had fabulous rates, right? Now all of a sudden they've got to go rebuild.
And what's the average rate? What's the average rate now? 5-6%?
6%. You're looking at 6.5%. Is where you're at now. So it's a different rate environment.
What is the difference in a payment between a 4% mortgage and is it a couple $1,000s per? How do you guys calculate?
So let's look at it. So in terms of the luxury community, so a $2.5 million loan. So let's say a $5 million purchase,
which is very typical of Pacific Palisades and higher than that.
Correct.
Okay.
So back in 2021, if you were doing a loan back then at like a 2.25%, you're looking at a monthly payment of $4,700 a month. Not that bad. Now you're looking at about $17,000 a month. That's significant.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
No kidding.
Significantly different.
So the difference in payment is that much higher.
Yeah. So that's another consideration you're going to have to look at when you're looking at everything that's going on with the rebuilding of these communities.
Jason Berry's our guest. Jason Berry, of course, jasonberryteam.com, berryestates.com, as a real estate expert on the Big Biz Show. There is a philosophy there's only two paths to wealth in this country. You have to own real estate, you have to own a business. By owning a share of stock in Apple, you own a business. Okay, so it's equities or real estate. There is this philosophy that says if you rent, you don't have to worry about property taxes, you don't have to worry about maintenance, okay? And you can take that money that you would have spent on a house and put it in the equities market. Do you think more people will start renting now going forward, or do you think purchasing real estate is still going to be sort of the stalwart?
I think, well, the thing that's nice about real estate is when you're looking at investments, you're looking at the market, everything else. One thing, just the basics, real estate is real. You can feel, touch, see, and you can actually personally enjoy it.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, that's something that's wonderful as opposed to renting. You do not. You're not investing in something that's yours.
There is a difference.
There is. Well, there's also, the reality or the hopeful reality that what you're investing in as you purchase, you're building equity.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking to build equity and
Right.
investment in something that you're putting in, especially in some place that you do believe in typically.
Right.
So that's where we believe real estate, and once again, there's a shortage of housing. So if there is, it's got to be a great investment.
In terms of the rest of the country, will something like this affect other areas of the country? Because it's going to affect Southern California and probably Central California in terms of supply demand. There's just not enough homes, and people who live in California are used to living in California.
Right.
Or Eduardo was saying people are moving to Montana. I mean, they might just be like, this.
Montana ain't cheap either. But the point, do you think there's something, because this is a big catastrophe, not in terms of just the human loss and such, but you're talking about a GDP, a local gross domestic product, in that area, which is higher than most areas in the whole country. So if you think in terms of that, it's got to have far-reaching effects elsewhere in terms of real estate values, which makes us think, okay, where are mortgage rates going to go? Like, what happens?
No, that's true. That's true. But back to the original, yeah. I mean, it looks like there is to a certain degree a migration that is occurring right now, right? So the question is how permanent is that migration? That's going to be the question. So time will tell. I think in the next 6 months, we're going to have pretty good indicators of that. In the next year, we're going to have great indicators of exactly where the direction looks like we're headed. In terms of mortgage rates, that's the scratch in your head, right? We've got to wonder, where's this economy going? Stock market is strong.
And mortgage covers the long bond, not the short interest rates. So when the Fed drops its rates, they're not dropping rates that immediately affect mortgage rates. That affects credit cards and car loans and savings accounts. If you were to unfortunately be one of the people that lost a home there, okay, and let's say you had a $5 million home, you got a $2.5 million mortgage, you probably got a $3 million or $4 million rebuild insurance policy to get your house. Would you rebuild or would you go move elsewhere? What would you personally do?
I think it depends, right? I mean, you look at some of those communities where the total community has been wiped out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
the local grocery store.
Yeah, you're going to meet, I think, and speak with your loved ones and really decide, guys, this is what it looks like. It looks like it's probably a 2, 3, 4 year time horizon for us personally to get this. And what does our community look like at that point in time? I think one thing is nice is this is an opportunity for a lot of those people too. And I see this happening through a lot of my connections up there in LA with some of the top agents, where a lot of these owners are kind of getting together, trying to, it's making them come closer and more tight knit, which is really nice to see. Sense of community, care, concern, where they're trying to get together and they're trying to forecast and really plan, for that future to see how they can help, integrate and make it better for the future. That's actually nice to see happening too.
Real quickly, Before we let you out of here, I want to talk about your Instagram and how people get a hold of you. But before you do that, talk about fire insurance up there. What in the state of California specifically? This is like tornado insurance or hurricane insurance.
You default to the California Fair Plan, which is a max at $3 million. But right now, State Farm, they took off. Everybody knew that. They bailed out. The local areas down here, it seems like you've got a couple still. Pure is, I think, one of the stalwarts that's pretty big in there right now. Yeah. But, for them to come back in, I think there are going to have to be some changes made. It's interesting.
Are those legislative changes? Are those mandates through government, or are they just going to have to be through the shareholders? Say, look, you're losing money by not writing here.
Potentially, each one of those could motivate it, right? Okay. But it's interesting. We have a lot of friends in our communities that are being very proactive. One is a wonderful friend named Ellen Stiefler. She even wrote an article to the communities like, look, what can you do for fire preparedness, right? What can you do? And she gives some great example in there too. Right. Just talking about different vegetation going through.
I planted pickleweed around my property. There you go. All around, ice plant a long time ago. And it was the ugliest thing in the world. I can't really see it on the embankment, but I had a CAL FIRE came by one day because they come by once a year to our area. And we got an A+ because of the fact that you got to be proactive about it, right? How do people get? You have 130,000, 140,000 followers on Instagram and social. How do people find you?
So jasonberryteam.com is where they typically find us right there.
And on Instagram?
On Instagram, Jason Berry Team.
All right, very good. We'll put it up there on the screen for you. Jason, see you in a couple weeks.
Guys,
I'd have you here every day if I could. More Big Biz Show coming up. Stand by. Big Biz Show.
You guys are fabulous.
Yeah, you as well.
Man, what a show. Busy show today. Big Biz Show. BigBizShow.com. Follow us on TikTok, believe it or not. Sully Speaks Money. Greg Todoroff, our executive producer, Mary Burt Godwin, my co-host, Mike Costa will be back next week. And of course, the Day Trader Trio. Thank you, boys. John Vandermosten is our resident analyst, whether he knows it or not. He has now become our resident stock analyst, life science analyst in the biotech side. He works for Zacks Small Cap Research as well as his own newsletter called Unboxing Biotech. He is a certified financial analyst. He is a life sciences analyst, and he has just covered the biggest life sciences convention or conference in the world, or it should be in the United States, the JP Morgan Chase conference, and he joins us again right here on the Big Biz Show. John, so here's what I want to say. Last year in 2024, there was that big JPM speech that came out and said, look, we've got a tough 2 years in biotech. 2024 is going to be the year, and although it's going to be tough to raise capital in the first quarter, it's all going to open up, and it indeed opened up for about 6 weeks. and then it closed right up again. And biotech once again had a horrible 2024. I would say for a majority of the mid cap to small cap stocks in that range. What 2025? What was your takeaway from JP Morgan, and what do you think? I mean, you're at the tip of the spear of all this. I mean, you follow companies like Bristol Myers and some of the bigger companies. But what does the overall landscape look like in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I think just to comment on what you first said about last year, we started off the year, I think, with a couple good M&A deals, but it never followed through. And I think M&A disappointed. And, for the smaller cap names, which is where I spend most of my time, you really need M&A to drive prices, because that's the exit strategy for a lot of these smaller companies. But I would say, for this year so far, we saw, by my count, there were 5 deals that took place last week, which was the same week as JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. And, I think we're off to a good start. We'll have to see. But, Sully, I know it's going to seem crazy, but I think we should talk about schizophrenia.
Okay.
And the biggest.
Listen, I'm sorry, NRX Pharma is one of the folks that we cover here that I want you to start taking a look at. But schizophrenia and suicidal ideation are at the top of the scale. I heard that everyone was talking about those type of life sciences over at the conference. So talk about schizophrenia.
Yeah. Well, that was the biggest deal that took place was Johnson & Johnson's bid for Intracellular for $14.6 billion.
Wow.
Which is pretty big. And if our viewers are paying attention for a long time, and probably not many are to schizophrenia, but there was about a period of 10 years where nothing was done, no deals took place. And then about 13 months ago, in December 2023, we saw 2 big deals back then, and that was Bristol Myers for Karuna, and their drug that they bought actually got approved after they bought Karuna. And then there was another one for Cerevel. That drug didn't do so well. But both of these were for multi-billion dollars, and I think that really means that a lot of the development companies out there in the space could be pretty favorably positioned. And we cover a name called Reviva Pharmaceuticals with its drug brilaroxazine, which is in really late phase 3 trials right now, which I think could really benefit from this trend that we've seen in M&A.
I think do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So John, are you seeing companies looking at these companies pre-approval, or are they waiting to go through the FDA approval, get the FDA approval, and then do the acquisition?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there's been a lot of risk aversion from the larger names over the last several years, and I think that's actually backfired. And let me give you one example, because they pay a lot more when there's more certainty, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of paying a lot less and taking a little bit more risk, they pay a lot more, and sometimes it doesn't go the way they hoped. But the two deals that I mentioned from 13 months ago, there was Bristol Myers for Karuna. They paid $14 billion for this asset. It got approved, and it was about 3 or 4 months away from the FDA's approval. So very, very late stage. Not approved yet, but almost there. And then the other one was also in about that same stage, which was, just ready to get a word from the FDA on it. So that's what I've seen, very, very few that are willing to spend money on a phase 2 asset out there. And they're really willing to wait, or they want to wait till it's approved or it's close to being approved.
Hey, John. So FDA approved roughly 55 drugs last year in 2024. That's about 4.5 drugs a month. Is that scale? Is that about right? That seems low to me. Is that about good?
Yeah, those are novel drugs. I mean, there are probably some more approvals beyond that that are reformulations of already approved drugs. But those are pretty high numbers if you look historically. If you go back. We had a slowdown during COVID because the FDA was focused on the vaccine, and there was travel restrictions that prevented them from doing their work. But that's about at the high level, about 55 or so. And I think we've seen about that amount for the last couple of years.
The thing that we've talked about on the program here is I think Mary's the one who actually brought up the GLP-1. Drugs. I mean, they've been a big deal for 2 years. If you think of in terms of Wegovy, Saxenda, Triceratops.
Well, now they're saying
whatever it's called.
Now they're saying that they're good for even sleep apnea and other things besides just. Well, first it was diabetes, and then now it's weight loss, and then it's all this other stuff too.
Okay, so
cardiovaseware health too.
Yeah,
wait a second. Wait.
And then Alzheimer's was another one.
Wait a minute. If they're weight loss drugs, if you lose weight, diabetes goes down, heart rate's better, and your sleep apnea goes away. Is that just a natural progression, or are these individually addressing these things?
Yeah, that's right. That's why the sleep apnea indication got approved, because it helps you lose weight, and when you have lower weight, you're less likely to suffer from sleep apnea. So yeah, direct correlation there.
What are you looking to for 2025 as kind of being peaking up as probably as tough.
What are my picks? I see a few interesting areas. The M&A in schizophrenia is pretty promising. Radiopharmaceuticals is another interesting area. There were 2 radiopharmaceuticals deals that took place last week.
What's radiopharmaceutical mean? What's that specific?
Oh, so a lot of those are used for imaging. So if you get a PET scan, you'll take a radio tracer, and it's able to bind to whatever they're trying to trace, and then they'll put you through the scanner, and the radiologist can read where it's bound, and it can help find cancers. Prostate cancer is a big one.
Yeah.
But the most exciting area here is actually in Alzheimer's, because as you may know, there were 2 Alzheimer's drug approved over the last 2 years, Leqembi and Kisunla. And that has really opened up the demand for seeing if people actually have Alzheimer's, how much beta amyloid or tau they have in their brain, and if they're appropriate for the drug. So that has opened up a whole new market over here for the for the imaging side of things, which is radiopharmaceuticals.
Well, John, we're going to have you back next week. Always a pleasure. His Twitter handle at VanJohn10, at VanJohn10, of course, Zacks Small Cap Research. And look at Unboxing Biotech, our good buddy John Vandermosten there. Thanks, Bud.
Great stuff.
It really is, and it makes me happy because some of the companies that we interviewed here in the program could benefit from some of the things that happen at JP Morgan.
Yep.
Big Biz Show, stand by.